Welcome to Inside True Stories, where real-life battles, unexpected romance, and the triumph of justice unfold. Today, we bring you the story of Danielle Harris, a Black entrepreneur whose dream lakeside escape turns into a fight for dignity, love, and rightful ownership. This is a story of courage, romance, and a shocking twist that changes everything. Danielle Harris parked her sleek, black SUV along the gravel driveway of her new lakeside property. The water glistened under the early morning sun, reflecting the tall trees that framed the serene landscape. A deep sigh escaped her lips, not of exhaustion, but relief. After years of working tirelessly to build her business, she had finally purchased a home of her own, a private sanctuary where she could heal from the stress, the subtle prejudices she had endured, and the heartbreak of a failed relationship. The wooden dock stretched into the shimmering lake, empty and quiet. Danielle ran her fingers along the weathered boards, imagining quiet mornings sipping coffee, evenings with a journal, and laughter that might someday echo across the water. This dock symbolized freedom, her freedom. As she unpacked boxes near the dock, a few neighbors peeked from their homes, curiosity flickering in their eyes. Some were welcoming, nodding politely. Others watched her warily, the quiet tension of exclusivity hanging in the air. Danielle ignored it. She had earned this, and nothing would tarnish her peace. It was in that moment, carrying a box of gardening supplies, that she first met Ethan Cole, a tall man in his late 30s, slightly rugged, but with a gentle demeanor. He approached her from the other side of the dock, offering help without hesitation. "You've got quite the lakeside setup," he said, smiling as he lifted one of her heavier boxes. Danielle returned a small smile, grateful for the help, but cautious. "It's peaceful. I just hope I can make it feel like home." Ethan nodded knowingly. "You deserve it, and a little peace is exactly what this place gives, if you let it." A spark ignited in the quiet air between them. Not immediate passion, but curiosity, intrigue, and the subtle pull of shared understanding. Later that evening, Danielle stood at the edge of her dock, bare feet brushing the water, watching the sunset paint the lake golden orange. She allowed herself to imagine a life of tranquility here, a life she could finally call her own. Yet in the stillness, she felt a quiet awareness, a small unease she couldn't quite shake. The docks in this community were tightly controlled by the HOA, and she knew from subtle glances and hushed gossip that outsiders, especially someone like her, might not be fully welcome, but she would not let fear define her. This was her property, her dock, her freedom, and she would protect it. As night fell, Danielle lit a small lantern on the dock and sipped her tea, her reflection shimmering in the calm water. Across the lake, she noticed lights from other properties, quiet, controlled, orderly. It reminded her that appearances could be deceiving, and that sometimes the peace you seek must be fiercely defended. She didn't know it yet, but this tranquil beginning was about to be shattered. The dock she cherished would become a battlefield, a place where prejudice, power, and greed would collide with courage, justice, and unexpected romance. A few days after settling in, Danielle walked toward her dock, carrying a small basket of freshly picked flowers. The morning sun shimmered on the lake, reflecting the calm she had hoped for. That calm shattered when a uniformed HOA security guard stepped onto the dock, blocking her path. His tone was sharp, commanding. "Ma'am, you're not allowed to use this dock. HOA regulations state it's private property reserved for registered members only," he said, glancing at her papers. Danielle froze. "Excuse me, this is my property. My name is on the deed. I own this dock." The guard smirked. "Sorry, ma'am. Rules are rules." Her heart raced, not from fear, but from disbelief. She had never been challenged so brazenly, especially on land she legally owned. Across the lake, Ethan, who had been jogging along the path, noticed the confrontation. Ethan arrived quickly, concern evident on his face. "Is everything okay?" he asked. Stepping close to Danielle, the guard turned to him, annoyance flickering in his eyes. "Sir, this is private HOA property. You need to leave." Ethan's jaw tightened. "She owns it. Now step aside." The tension was thick. Danielle felt a surge of gratitude toward Ethan. She had expected confrontation, maybe even prejudice. But having an ally, a kind and principled man, gave her courage. Over the next few days, the HOA's harassment escalated. Notices appeared in her mailbox, threatening fines for unauthorized dock use. Security guards loitered near her property, recording her movements. One morning, her small rowboat had been moved and chained. A humiliating attempt to intimidate her, Danielle refused to back down. But each incident reminded her that appearances could be deceiving. Her neighbors, the HOA board, and even security were willing to bend the rules to assert control. Determined to fight back, Danielle hired a private investigator to examine the HOA's records. Late one night, she and Ethan sat in her home office, reviewing documents. Ethan's presence was steady, reassuring, and gradually she realized her feelings for him were deepening. "This isn't just a small misunderstanding," Ethan said, pointing to the documents. "They've been misrepresenting ownership for years. They've been using this dock illegally, thinking no one would notice." Danielle's eyes narrowed. "Then they're going to regret underestimating me." Despite the tension and threats, Danielle and Ethan found moments of connection by the lake. One evening, after filing yet another complaint, they shared a quiet moment on the dock, watching the sun set over the water. "You've handled this with incredible strength," Ethan said softly. Danielle looked at him, vulnerability flickering in her eyes. "I'm scared, honestly, but I can't let them win." He reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "You won't have to fight alone." The spark between them deepened. Not yet full romance, but a quiet, growing bond forged through courage and shared struggle. As Danielle reviewed her property deed that night, a strange feeling stirred. Something about the HOA's aggression didn't add up. They were treating her as if she had no rights at all. She didn't yet know the full truth, but soon, she would discover a shocking reality. She didn't just have rights to the dock, she owned it entirely. And when that truth came to light, the balance of power would shift entirely. The harassment escalated. One morning, Danielle arrived at the dock to find her small rowboat vandalized. Scratches and spray paint covering the wood. Nearby, a security guard watched from a distance, smirking. Her heart pounded with anger and disbelief. The peaceful lakeside sanctuary she had envisioned was turning into a battlefield. Ethan arrived shortly after, his eyes scanning the scene. "This is getting out of hand," he said firmly, kneeling to inspect the damage. Danielle's hands trembled as she spoke. "I can't believe they think they can treat me like this. They have no idea what they're dealing with." As the threats mounted, fines, intimidating notices, and aggressive security, Danielle leaned on Ethan. One evening, they walked along the dock, lanterns reflecting in the calm water. Ethan's hand brushed hers, tentative but comforting. "You don't have to handle this alone," he said softly. Danielle looked at him, vulnerability in her eyes. "I fought so hard to get here, and now it feels like they're trying to take everything." He held her gaze, steady and unwavering. "Then we fight together, you and me." For the first time, she felt a spark of hope. Not just for reclaiming her property, but for love. But trust in the community proved fragile. One neighbor, someone Danielle had confided in about her ownership, quietly tipped off the HOA board. That same night, she returned to the dock to find threatening graffiti spray painted on her dock posts. "Leave or lose everything." Danielle's hands clenched into fists. Ethan arrived moments later, alarmed. We can't let them intimidate you. Not now. Not ever. She shook her head. Her determination hardened. They've underestimated me for the last time. Determined to uncover the truth, Danielle reviewed her property deed late that night. The words on the page seemed almost surreal. She scanned the legal description, then read it again. She wasn't just a dock owner. She owned the entire dock and surrounding land, legally and unequivocally. The HOA's aggressive behavior suddenly made sense. Their entire claim was based on a false assumption that she didn't hold full rights. Danielle's eyes blazed with renewed purpose. This ends now. That evening, she and Ethan sat on the dock, the moonlight shimmering on the lake. I've never felt so powerless in my own home, Danielle admitted quietly. Ethan took her hand in both of his. You're not powerless. You just didn't know it yet. And now you do. And I'll be right here with you. Their hands lingered together, a quiet intimacy forming. The romance between them had grown stronger in the crucible of danger, and a spark of hope and love began to shine amidst the chaos. Armed with the deed and evidence of the HOA's corruption, Danielle began planning her next move. Legal filings would expose the board's misconduct, security. Harassment would be documented. Every intimidation tactic would become proof in court. She was no longer just a victim. She was a force to be reckoned with. As she looked across the lake, the dock illuminated in soft moonlight, Danielle knew that justice and a new chapter of love was just within reach. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation. Danielle sat beside Ethan, her hands clutching the stack of documents proving her ownership and exposing the HOA's corruption. Across the aisle, HOA board members and security guards shifted nervously, unsure how to respond to the evidence stacked against them. Her lawyer, confident and articulate, began presenting the case. Forged rules, illegal fines, and harassment targeting Danielle. Every document, every photograph, every recorded threat was laid bare. Danielle watched Ethan's proud gaze, and for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself a small smile. This battle wasn't just about the dock. It was about justice and reclaiming her dignity. Then came the pivotal moment. Her property deed was presented in court, showing that she owned the entire dock and surrounding land, something the HOA had never realized. Gasps echoed in the courtroom. The board members exchanged panicked glances. Security guards tried to hide their embarrassment. Danielle's eyes met Ethan's, and they shared a quiet, victorious smile. The judge banged the gavel. The dock and property in question legally belonged to Ms. Danielle Harris. All claims by the HOA are dismissed. The courtroom erupted with murmurs of astonishment. Justice had been served. Days later, Danielle returned to her dock. The water sparkled in the morning sun, undisturbed and peaceful. She and Ethan walked along the dock, hand in hand, finally able to enjoy the lakeside serenity she had envisioned. No more harassment, no more intimidation, only the soft lapping of the water and the warm breeze. I never thought I'd feel completely safe here, Danielle admitted, leaning into Ethan. You were always meant to own this, and now everyone else knows it too, Ethan replied, his hand brushing hers gently. The ordeal had brought them closer. By standing together against injustice, Danielle and Ethan had formed a bond built on trust, respect, and shared courage. One evening, under a golden sunset, they sat at the edge of the dock, feet dangling over the water. Danielle smiled, finally able to breathe, finally free. I couldn't have done this without you, she whispered. Ethan turned to her, eyes filled with warmth. No one ever could. And now, we can build something new here, together. Their lips met in a tender, lasting kiss, the lake reflecting both the end of a battle and the beginning of a life filled with love, peace, and justice. This was the story of Danielle Harris, a woman who faced harassment, betrayal, and injustice, only to reclaim what was rightfully hers. With courage, determination, and the support of someone who truly cared, she turned humiliation into triumph and found love along the way. Here, on Inside True Stories, we are reminded that true power lies in standing firm, knowing your worth, and never giving up on justice.